Welcome to my channel, Commanders of History. Today I'm going to tell you a story that will remind you that real strength is not always loud. Sometimes it walks silently through the storm and changes everything around it. The rain poured over the naval base that evening. The air was heavy with the scent of sea salt and engine oil, the kind of smell that stuck to the skin and told stories of long missions and sleepless nights. New recruits ran across the yard carrying bags and uniforms, their shouted orders echoing between the barracks. But among them walked a woman, calm, silent, and unnoticed. Her uniform was plain, no stars, no marks, nothing to show who she was. She carried a small duffel bag on her shoulder and a quiet confidence in her eyes. Her name was Elena Cross. To everyone on the base, she looked like just another recruit, maybe a nurse, maybe a desk officer. But what no one knew was that she wasn't there to learn. She was here to lead. Elena Cross was the newly appointed Admiral of the base, assigned under deep cover to observe how her commando paraded to see who was loyal and who wasn't. Only 3 people in the entire command knew her true identity. Therist, including the arrogant squad leaders, thought she was just the new girl. That night inside the cafeteria, the noise was loud. Laughter, clinking trays, the kind of careless chatter that filled military rooms after long training hours. Elena sat quietly at a corner table, her food untouched. Across from her sat a group of recruits led by Sergeant Cole, a man known for his ego and his temper. He noticed her. Hesmarked. Well, look who we have here, he said loudly. The new girl who thinks she can walk in here without even saying hello. The table laughed. Elena raised her eyes slowly, calm as a still lake. I didn't think I needed permission to eat, she replied softly. Her tone was polite, but it carried a weight that made Cole's smile fade for a moment. Still he laughed again. Careful, sweetheart. Around here, respect is earned. Elena looked at him, then back at her plate. Respect is also given, she said quietly. That night, word spread fast. The new girl had an attitude. The next morning, she was assigned to Sergeant Cole's training squad, a setup meant to break recruits, not train them. The training ground was soaked in rain. The squad lined up, boots sinking slightly into the mud. Cole paced in front of them, his voice loud and sharp. Today, he barked, we separate the strong from the weak. He stopped in front of Elena. You first, princess. Show us what you've got. Without a word, she stepped forward. The drill was simple. Climb the wall, cross the pit, and sprint to the finish line with a weighted pack. Every recruit had done it, but the rain made it 10 times harder. Cole whispered something to another officer, and they smirked. They'd added extra weight to her pack, 50 lullaby more than the others. Elena lifted it onto her back. Her knees trembled slightly from the strain, but her face stayed still. When the whistle blew, she moved step by step. Slow at first, then steady, then faster. The recruits started cheering, not for her, but for the fun of watching her fall. But she didn't. She climbed, pulled, and ran like someone who'd been through storms far worse than this. When she reached the final line, drenched and shaking, Cole blew his whistle again. Lucky run, he said. Do it again. The others went silent. Even his assistant frowned, but Elena didn't argue. She nodded, picked up the pack, and started again. By the time she finished the second round, her hands were bleeding. Her boots were torn, yet her posture was perfect, her salute precise. She didn't say a word. That night, when Cher turned to the barracks, she found Herb soaked. Someone had poured water over it. Her locker was missing, her uniform gone. She sat on the wet mattress, staring quietly ahead. No longer no tears, just silence. Then a voice came from behind. You don't belong here, one of the recruits sneered. Maybe you should quit before someone gets hurt. Elena stood slowly, her shadow long against the dim light. You're right, she said softly. Someone might get hurt. The next morning, during the weapons inspection, everything changed. The base commander, unaware of Elena's identity, entered the field to observe. Cole's squad was performing poorly, undisciplined, laughing, joking. Elena stood still at attention, her rifle perfectly aligned. The commander frowned. This squad is at us, Grace, he shouted. Who's leading this? Sergeant Cole, sir, said one of the men. The commander turned to see Cole, smirking confidently. Sir, they're just learning. I'll straighten them out. Before the commander could respond, Elena stepped forward. Permission to speak, sir, she said. The commander raised an eyebrow. Who are you? Elena Cross. Sir, she replied. But I think you already know that. The commander froze, his eyes widened. The entire field went silent. Slowly, he straightened his posture and saluted. Admiral Cross, he said firmly. The squad stared in disbelief. Cole's mouth fell open, his face pale. Elena stepped closer, her voice calm but cutting. You said respect is earned, Sergeant. Consider it earned. She turned to the rest of the squad. For days I've watched how you treat new recruits. You bully them, you laugh when they fall. But this base isn't built on fear. It's built on trust. And that trust is broken. The recruits lowered their eyes. Some looked ashamed. Cole tried to speak, but she raised a hand. Silence, she said quietly. You wanted to test me. You did, and you failed. That afternoon, the storm returned. Heavy rain falling over the training field as Elena walked alone through the mud. But she wasn't alone anymore. One by one, the same recruits who mocked her earlier began to follow. No orders, no commands, just silent respect. Cole approached her later, drenched and shaking. Ma'am, he said quietly. I didn't know. Elena looked at him, her expression unreadable. You didn't need to know who was to treat me right, Sergeant. That's the difference between a soldier and a leader. He nodded slowly, shame written all over his face. Weeks passed. Under her command, the base changed. The laughter in the cafeteria was no longer cruel. The recruits trained harder, helped each other, learned discipline not through fear but through unity. One morning during a ceremony by the flagpole, the same recruits who once laughed at her now stood proudly as she dressed them. When I came here, she said, her voice strong, I didn't come to judge. I came to understand, and I learned that a base isn't made of walls or weapons. It's made of people. People who must trust, protect, and respect each other. That's how we win. That's how we survive. The recruits saluted, their eyes filled with respect. And something else, admiration. As the flag rose behind her, sunlight broke through the clouds. The ocean wind blew across the base, carrying the scent of salt and steel. Sergeant Cole stepped forward. Permission to speak, Admiral. Granted, she said with a faint smile. He looked her in the eyes. Thank you for not giving up on us. She nodded. You gave me a reason not to. Later that night, Elena stood by the shoreline watching the waves crash against the rocks. The storm had passed, but the sound of the sea still roared like an echo of everything that had happened. Sometimes, she thought, strength isn't about showing power. It's about patience, about letting people see who they are and then showing them who they could be. She smiled faintly, the moonlight catching the insignia on her shoulder. Admiral Elena Cross, the woman they once laughed at, the leader they would now follow anywhere. And with that, the story of the new girl became legend, not because she fought back, but because she rose higher without ever raising her voice. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This is Commanders of History, where every story reminds us that courage often wears the quietest face.